Hello, everybody, and I just wanted to talk to you about the weather that they had in Texas and how bad it was and how many people suffered. And part of the reason they suffered is because they were unprepared. Um, will they prepare afterwards? Doubtful. Um, you take a look at some of their electric bills that we've even seen on the news: $5,000, $6,000, $7,000. When their electricity finally came back on, that's what they were charged for their electricity. It happens. Every time there's a disaster, it's not the first time it's happened in Texas. They had years ago where pipes froze and they busted, and people were trying to heat their homes, and they were charging outrageous $700, $800 bills to people. Elderly, they were on Social Security. There's no way they could pay that. They don't have that kind of money. And you become, how do I say, victims of the circumstances because you become unprepared. I mean, there are heaters out there that run off of propane. Even if you live in the city and you can't necessarily run a wood stove, there are heaters that you could run to keep you warm. The little tanks that people have that they put on their grills with propane, well, they sell heaters that run off of those also. They also sell kerosene heaters. There's other things, but see, people become comfortable in their everyday life, and they don't think that disaster will ever hit them. It doesn't cross their mind because they're living life, going to work, coming home. They don't think of a future that has heartache or troubles in it. They think of a future that everything is just great. They don't stop and think about a future that if they walk into the grocery store and there's no food there. They don't think about that kind of future. They don't think about being caught in the dead of winter with no heat at all or no electricity. Now, after this, will some of them become prepared? A few, but very few. Because I don't know what it is, but we live in a time when we don't learn from our past and from what happens to us. We just continue to live our life on every day, and whatever hits us for the moment hits us. We go through the trial, the tribulation of trying to stand back up, of trying to rebuild our homes, our lives again through a disaster like this. You know, you, you tell people that a disaster is going to come, and they laugh at you. Well, they say, oh, it's never going to happen. This country will never collapse. It'll never come to the point where there's no food. It'll never come to the point where there's no electricity or water. But yet it already did to millions in Texas. Ask them. They'll tell you. They had no electricity, no running water, nothing. And they had none in their homes either. They didn't, put several cases of water aside to drink with. They never took tap water and just filled up their empty gallons, putting a couple of drops of bleach in it, a little bit of soap, cleaning it out real good, and then, filling it up with tap water and saving it for a little while, for an emergency, for a disaster. They didn't think of any of those things. Very few of them did. And we see what happens when we don't think ahead or we don't prepare ahead and disaster hits. You had people sitting in their cars trying to heat themselves inside of their cars. That's what it had come to for many of them. And for many of them, it came to something that looked a whole lot like what I'm going to show you. And could they have prepared for it? Yes. But did they? No. And so what did they have to look forward to when they tried to get what they needed at the stores? This is the kind of thing that they saw when they went into the store trying to find water and just basic needs. They have this to look forward to. This is their stores. I mean, hardly anything in them at all. Empty. Shelf after shelf after shelf. No produce. No toilet paper. No eggs, no milk, no bread, nothing. Trucks were laying on the sides of the road. Fires. Trucks caught on fire. Trying to get through the icy mess. You know, the ones that carry everything to get to them. And will it take a while before their shelves get restocked? It definitely will. It's going to take quite some time before everything gets restocked again. And this is what they're going to have to look forward to. If they happen to find anything, it's going to cost them a whole lot of money. Because what are people going to leave behind? The highest priced meats, $40, $50 a package. And there'll be some that'll go ahead and pay that price for it. But there'll be a lot who won't even be able to afford that. Could they have prevented it? Could they have prevented having to go to a store that looks like this? Yeah, they could have. They could have. If they'd just done a little bit of preparing ahead of time. You know, a camper stove where you use a little propane tanks and a few cans of soup. You know, a couple extra dozen of eggs. Eggs for breakfast, you know, maybe even some bacon if they had some on hand. Just a camper stove. Nice cup of coffee, you know, instant coffee. Just heat some water. But they didn't. They didn't do anything really. Most of them didn't. And will they learn like I said? No, most of them won't. They'll just tell you, well, it was just the weather, freaking nature. They'll be more prepared, better prepared. The government will. Yeah, the government will prepare better next time. And they won't have to live through this again. Always depending on somebody else to solve the problem instead of solving it for yourself.